Well, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Today, I have a pleasure of introducing a very important person to you. I'm here in the beautiful Sedona, courtesy of Dennis Harness, and today joining me is actually a very unique person who is a Western and Vedic astrologer, and he's something very special, which you're gonna find out later on. Please help me welcome Mr. Mark Amaru Pinkham. How are you, sir?
Excellent. Thank you very much for interviewing me today.
Absolutely. I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come here actually to this room and do the interview. So thank you so much.
Well, the timing was perfect. They're apparently having a Celtic festival here tomorrow, and
Oh, yeah.
as I drove in, I saw the flags of Scotland and the skull and crossbone flags of the Templars. And as you'll find out later in the program, I'm right at home.
Exactly. So let me get this going first by finding out how did your interest in astrology develop, and especially how did you got introduced to Vedic astrology in your life?
Well, I went through a period of wanting to understand more clearly the influences, the underlying influences affecting my life. And I'm not sure how what events took place, but it did lead me to astrology, and I did find the answers I was looking for through astrology. At the same time, uh, I was living in ashrams, the ashrams of yoga and meditation. A lot of time I spent in India during a 7-year period. And of course, part of that yoga culture is Vedic astrology. And so I started getting interested in Vedic astrology at that time, and that was, about 30, 35 years ago. And I actually had my chart done, astrology chart done in the Vedic system a couple times. I was really, really impressed. But I didn't actually start studying it until probably, oh, 10, 15 years after that. I started out as a Western astrologer, and it seemed to be kind of a natural progression for me to move into Vedic astrology. I wanted to study the dashas, the planetary cycles, which is a feature of astrology that you really don't have in Western astrology.
But how did this trip to India occur? What made you actually go to India and stay in an ashram? How did those events come about?
One word: misery.
Really? Well, would you care to explain?
I don't want to relive it, but I will explain it. Uh, Growing up, I wasn't a particularly happy person. My parents got divorced. We moved around a lot. Never really had enough time to make friends wherever I was. I felt very alone, and felt very sad. And I heard about yoga, heard about your meditation, that was the way of finding the natural high. And at that time, I had pretty much tried all the artificial ways of getting high, i.e., drugs and so forth. So I thought I would try yoga and meditation. I first took my first yoga class in the U.S. In my own hometown, actually, and this was when I was 19. This was 1975, I guess, or 75. And right away, I felt something there. I felt a deep inner peace that I hadn't felt before, and I had this ongoing health problem that it just disappeared overnight. So I said, okay, there's something here. And so, well, as fate would have it, the teacher of the class, her guru, her teacher, was this being called Swami Muktananda. She told me about him, and she started a meditation center for him in the town. And I started going to this center and really liking it. And and then I decided that I would meet this master when he came to the United States, which was the following April, which I did, and I made such a nice connection with him that I decided that I would follow him back to India in the fall, which I did, and that was in October of that year. And then began a 7-year cycle of living in ashrams, both in the U.S. and in India.
Now, when you were in the ashram, did you experience anything profound, anything through all these gurus that you suddenly realized that there's something more powerful than this 3D material world that we live in.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the guru that I ended up with, he was known as a Kundalini Shaktipat guru, and these kind of gurus are famous for the kind of unique supernatural experiences, spiritual experiences that they give you, and this guru was no exception. Myself and everybody around me was having these amazing kind of experiences where they would close their eyes, they would do a couple mantras. The next thing I knew, they would be astral traveling to another planet, or of course, or they would be having some kind of a vision that would be life changing, or their body would automatically move into what they call kriyas, bodily positions, or they would start shaking as this energy moved through them to purify them, or they might start barking like a dog, or roaring like a lion. It covered the whole gamut of the kind of experiences that people were having, and it was quite amazing. So, yeah, I was having those experiences almost daily, and the downside of that is that you get attached to those experiences, and when they stop, you're like, well, nothing's happening, and you start getting really upset.
Right. So it's kind of like a high of a drug that goes away.
Exactly, exactly, and that was my complaint, and it was complaint of some of the other yogis and yoginis in the ashram, that it's so easy to get attached to those experiences and expect them, and then if the experiences stop happening, then your interest in the whole path wanes, which is really pretty ridiculous. I'm with a teacher now where that isn't a problem. People don't have those kind of experiences, and I'm actually quite happy for that. Because really, there's heck of a lot more to the path than those experiences.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to astrology, especially Vedic astrology, a lot of people have this one question that they always ask an astrologer, including I did, is that what is my destiny in this life? What am I here to do? What do you look for in a Vedic astrological chart to see what someone is destined to do?
Well, certainly, I would look at the dashas, because that really gives you not only a broad view of a person's life, but a time schedule or when certain things are going to occur. Certainly, you would have to look at the ascendant. The ascendant is so important in Vedic astrology, and the ruler of the ascendant and the house and the sign that it's in, immensely, immensely important, and the aspects to it. Of course, you would have to look at the 10th house. I mean, that's occupation, that's profession. And you would look at Saturn, and you would also look at the sign Capricorn, where all those different factors are. You would look for them, and you would add them up, and you would come up with a pretty good perspective, a pretty good summation of what you're here to do.
Absolutely. Now, in your studies of, I know you were mostly self-taught. What is your conclusion, or what is your perspective on the Namansha chart, the D9 chart in Vedic astrology? When do you use it, and what importance do you give to it?
That's such a fascinating chart because there's so much you can do with it. I often use it just as another chart, almost equal to the Rasi chart.
Okay, side by side.
Exactly, right. I think most astrologers, they would look at the planets, the signs that the planets are, and then weigh that against the signs that the planets are in the Rasi. Certainly, that's important. I would say that there's something about the Navamsa being a soul chart. It goes deep into the psyche of a person and their soul, and also it's very much how that person experiences life inside themselves, right? Whereas the Rasi, you could say, is more the personality chart and what's projected out, but the Navamsa is more the internal chart and how they are directly experiencing.
So, when I was talking to you about destiny and career, do you think Namansha may reveal more about a person's career versus even a Rashi chart?
It possibly can, yeah. They do say that it's the future chart, and that you can read it in that way. it's like reading a person's inner aspirations that will eventually come out and manifest in their lives, usually later on in their life.
And is this the only chart, divisional chart that you work with, or you go for like the Sastyamsha chart, the Samsha chart, Saptamsha chart? Or how do you look at these divisional charts?
Yeah, some of the more major charts of the major houses for career, for profession, this sort of thing, and certainly. But usually I can get most of the information I need from the Devamsa, and it's also, of course, the marriage chart, and it gives a lot of information about that. There's so much that you can read into it that I really don't feel the need to draw in these other charts.
Absolutely. Now, this is one of my favorite questions that I love asking everyone is that what is your analysis on nakshatras and how important do you think not only the moon but the nakshatra that the planet sits in a birth chart? I mean, how do you look at them? Do you pay attention to them and what is your analysis on that?
Well, yeah, I think that they're very, very important. I would say, well, especially the moon. I mean, we know that that is by far the most important. That's your birth star. And you can read so much into the nakshatra of the moon in terms of who that person is, how they experience life, and the direction their life is leading in. But also the sun and the ascendant, and if you've got a cluster of planets that are all in the same nakshatra, that's very, very, very powerful. So, yes, I mean, I think nakshatras are immensely important, and that's one of the main features of Vedic astrology, and it's one that no Vedic astrologer should overlook.
You were also talking about dashas early on. When you look at a dasha, how are planets giving their results in dashas? Some people say planets bring the result of the nakshatra they sit in. Some say that planets bring the result of the house that they rule in the chart, and they express that through the house that they sit in. How do mahadasha results come into fructification?
Well, I would have to say I look at a combination of all of those. Um, Certainly, when you're looking at Rahu and Ketu, you would tend to look at the sign more than those two energies. But yeah, I would have to say that all of it is very important. When you're looking at a Venus dasha, you've got to look at Venus, the sign. You've got to look at the house. You've got to look at the houses that Venus rules over. You've got to look at all the aspects to Venus. I think if you really want to make a thorough investigation and a thorough summation of a dasha, you've got to take all these different factors in consideration. You know?
Absolutely. Now, one of the questions of Vedic astrology has been money and wealth, as known as the Dhan Yoga. Why is it that, in your opinion, two people having Dhan Yogas, one may not never experience that Dhan Yoga, where one will get more money that they ever need? Why is it that when people have Raj Yogas, Dhan Yogas, yet they never get to experience that?
Well, that is one of, I'd have to say, the mysteries of astrology. I recently had a Raja Yoga that I didn't feel, and I've had similar Raja Yogas that came right on schedule, and they lived up to the name of Raja Yoga. Can I explain it? No, but I'm also a Western astrologer. Now, if I look at the Western chart, I can often find some mitigating factor, whether it's a progression or transit, that might be holding up or even canceling the yoga. And it's one reason that I like to use both systems, because I can often find information in one that I don't find in the other.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is that if a planet is in a certain sign, obviously in Vedic, in Western, it may not be in a powerful dignity as one might think.
Well, that's absolutely true. And also, there might be a Western transit. I mean, you've got, of course, transits in the Vedic, but you have Western transits that could manifest in a different way than the ones in the Vedic. And of course, you have the progressions, which are also significant, especially when a planet moves into a new sign or a new house or makes a significant aspect to another natal planet. So there's many different factors to look at. But as I said, it is one of the great mysteries. I myself have a teacher, a guru, and it's said that when you have a guru, that the guru oversees your destiny. And if a Raja Yoga isn't the best thing for you on your spiritual path, then the guru can intercede and actually cancel out that Raja Yoga. So
Really? So a guru is able to somehow interfere with the destiny and mold it.
this is exactly the tradition, yeah, and certainly something like a Raja Yoga, which is going to generally make life easier for the person. Well, that might not be in the best and highest good for that person. They might need life to be difficult at that time in order to learn specific lessons.
Absolutely. Now, I want to kind of shift away from Vedic astrology and go perhaps even in the more deeper side of this rabbit hole known as human essence and what has happened on this planet according to our ancient, mystical traditions. And you seem to be very much deep into it, especially knowing your background as a Knights Templar and Freemason. And you were talking about it, that how the true wisdom of Freemasonry is lost. Would you please first tell us about the background of how you got into Freemasonry and what exactly is the true essence of this?
Well, I'm not actually a Freemason. I'm a Knight Templar. But through my tradition, I know a lot about Freemasonry because so many of the Knight Templar traditions were passed to the Freemasons. And there is a very long, long history. But in order to shorten it a little bit, I will say that the Knight Templars inherited a very sacred spiritual tradition known as the Johannite tradition or Johannite church that was descended from John the Baptist, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and John the Apostle. And the Templars, many Templars, believe that was the true tradition, not the tradition that was passed to St. Peter. This tradition was known as the Gnostic alchemical tradition, and it passed down a lineage of Grand Masters who were all named John until 1118, when it was passed to the Templars right after they were formed, and then our first Grand Master, Huda Peons, became John number 70 in this very long line. So for a long time, the Templars were Johannites. They were Gnostics, they were alchemists, and they cultivated and passed on a very sacred power, which we would call the Holy Spirit, which we would call Kundalini, many different names for it. But they referred to it often as the Holy Grail. That was truly their Holy Grail. That was their Holy Grail power that they were the guardians of.
Now, what is the essence of this sacred power? What were they using this power for? What was the true, like, what is the true ultimate meaning of having that power?
Well, this power is the power that awakens and opens a person to their inner knowingness. There's a fountain of intuitive wisdom within all of us. And once this Holy Grail power enters us and activates our own dormant energy, then this wisdom, this intuitive knowledge can open up and come forth within all of us, and then we'll become Gnostics. So you could basically call the Gnostic path the Gnostic alchemical path, because they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Alchemy leads to Gnosis.
Now, is there a message or a meaning that the Knights Templar are trying to show the world, or what is the basic message that why the Knight Templars exist in this world? I mean, is this something for like themselves in a small knit group, or is this something anyone can explore and learn?
There's many different sects of Knight Templars. our sect is different because we're carrying on this very ancient Gnostic alchemical tradition that goes back to John the Baptist. Most Knight Templars today are part of a charitable organization, which is more of a men's club. They've really lost their traditions. They've lost that power. The same with Freemasons, because that power and that tradition was passed to them at one point. You may be aware that at 1307, that there was a mass arrest of the Templars in France. Well, most of them escaped, and they ended up in Scotland. And there they assisted King Robert the Bruce in achieving freedom from the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. Right after that, in order to thank the Templars, King Robert the Bruce established the Royal Order of Scotland, which was a Freemasonic organization, but this would be specifically for the Templars. And they could kind of hide away in this organization. Well, long story short, this Royal Order of Scotland, it evolved into the 25 degrees of the Rite of Herodom, and then eventually it evolved into the 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. This is how Templarism evolved into Freemasonry.
But they're not. Are they linked together, or are they not?
Well, they are linked in that if you study the 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite, there's 2 degrees called the philosophical degrees, the 17th and 18th. And one of them is known as the Knight of East and West, and this is what the Templars consider themselves. Their job or their goal was to unite East and West spiritual traditions. And the 18th degree is known as the Knight of the Rose Cross. And the rose, to the Templars, symbolized alchemy. And in fact, they were known at one point as the Knights of the Rosy Cross because they were deeply involved with alchemy. So it's within those 2 degrees that much of Templarism was incorporated directly into Freemasonry. So there is a direct one-to-one correspondence there. However, a lot of Freemasons would like to deny that there is the connection, but in fact, there's been many books that have been written even by Freemasons, proving that there is that direct link between the Templars and the Freemasons, including one called John Robinson called Born in Blood. He was a Freemason that wrote about that direct connection. So it seems pretty obvious if you study the links.
Now, one last question I wanted to ask you regarding the Knights Templar and the Freemasonry. A lot of people have this, conspiracy theories that how Knights Templar Freemasonry is part of the Illuminati. What is your thought on that? I mean, is there a link to it, or is there not?
Well, the Illuminati that people know about today is the one that they read about on the internet, which is a far cry from the original Illuminati. The original Illuminati, founded by Adam Weishaupt in actually 1776, was actually a continuation of the Templars. They called themselves Templars, and one of the reasons they formed together was to gain vengeance for the Templars in order to bring down the monarchies of Europe and the Pope that had destroyed the Templars. So that was one of their goals, but it was also, they took it to an extreme, so that there would be actually no authority in the world. This is what they wanted to do. And there would be actually no private ownership, because private ownership was creating a class society of many strata, and that's what they didn't want. That's the way that they were going to bring down the nobles and the monarchy. So what the Illuminati were trying to do was actually complete the work of the Templars, which is to create a one-world Gnostic spiritual society. And so it was nothing malicious. It was nothing nefarious. It was actually a very beneficial thing. They were doing this in order to bring all the planetary people, to make them into one people. And so what happened was that along the way, that the Illuminati and the Freemasons joined together as one organization. And it was at that time that the Jews could then become Freemasons. They weren't Freemasons before. This was in the Council of Wilhelmsbad, I think it was 1782. And then right after that, then this joint Freemason Illuminati order started hatching plans for revolutions around the world to create, democracy and freedom. And so they called upon the Jews to actually to finance these rebellions, and the Jews were very happy to do that. They were the bankers at the time, and they were the only ones that could charge interest, which was usury at that time. And if you were a Christian, you could not charge interest, so you couldn't be a banker. So the Jews were bankers. And so one thing led to another, and at the end, the Jews decided that they would use the Illuminati for their own means, for their own plans, to create a world Zion. Because actually, when the Jews first became members of this joint Illuminati Freemasonry order, they did not have a country. Israel didn't exist. So they believed that Zion, the land that God was going to give them, was the whole world. And so, one thing that happened soon after that, it was the Russian Revolution, which was financed there again by the Jews. And right after the Russian Revolution, the new order, the new government, the new Soviet government, was 75–80% Jews.
Right.
And so it was going to be through communism that they were then going to apparently take over the world. Well, this didn't last very long because Stalin was the next in line, and he decided that he didn't want anybody to have any power anywhere close to his, and if they did, he was going to, well, kill them.
I see.
And this is how most of the Jews ended up dead, and so that was the end of that plan. So that didn't work. So then their next plan was to conquer the world through capitalism, through ownership of the planet, which apparently they've done.
So you think they have accomplished that?
I believe to a certain extent that they have. And in the higher echelons of most of the banks, what do you find? You usually find Jews. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
I'm just saying that this appears to me to be the natural sequence of events that occurred.
Now, my last question to you is, all the viewers that are watching this interview and especially excited about Vedic astrology, if they want to get a consultation from you, how can they contact you to get a consultation?
Well, I have a website, and it's www.gnostictemplars.org. And if you go to that website, which is also the joint website of my Templar organization, if you scroll down, there'll be a link to a page, my astrology page, and that will tell you exactly how to order a chart reading and what you can expect in that chart reading.
And what is that website?
www.gnostictemplars.org.
And currently, you said the website may not work. When do you expect that to be up and running?
All within a few days. We need it up and running because, that's our main website, and
yeah, by the time I upload this interview, so it'll be up. So, I'll put the link at the bottom of the video so you guys can actually click on it and go to the website and check out all the information that we have discussed today. And thank you once again, Mark, for giving me your valuable time and this valuable information that you have given me.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I talked a moment about this one world Gnostic order. To my mind, and I think you'll find in history, that was the true New World Order. But of course, it has been distorted and changed since then. Now, that was the goal of the Templars, was to create that one world of spirituality. And this is what we ourselves are all about, us Gnostic Templars in the International Order of Gnostic Templars, that we are committed to assisting everybody in achieving Gnosis. We are committed to creating Gnostic communities around the world where people have the opportunity to achieve Gnosis. We are committed to teaching people what Gnosis and alchemy is all about, because this isn't religion. This is pure spirituality. This is evolution. This is what we're all here to do. And so any of you out there that are on that path and you would like to join others on that path, and perhaps you have a special affinity to the Knights Templar, please visit our website, and we welcome your interest, and we're open for your involvement in what we're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your time and this valuable information. So, guys, please go check out the website. The link is below. I'm going to put the annotation on the this screen as well of YouTube, so you guys can just click on that and go there as well. So, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Same here.